Greetings dear Acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the channel. In a previous video, we covered all the non-Jedi Force-based organizations that were rooted in the light side, and as promised in that video, today we will be moving on to cover all the Force organizations affiliated with the Dark. Unlike the light side, there are a great many dark side followers that weren't affiliated with the Sith. As with the light side orders, they typically were actually affiliated with the Jedi in some capacity. So for this video, we will be mostly focusing on those who are self-sustaining and have nothing to do with the Sith whatsoever, or at least have very rudimentary and basic connections. So any groups such as the Knights of Zakul, which were made specifically just for the Eternal Empire, won't be covered, as they mostly just served their Emperor like the Red Guards did. Now with introductions out of the way, let's get into it. We are going to start off this roster with two organizations that fall into the neutral category of the Force before we get into the Darksiders specifically, because of the simple fact that we feel like these orders should be highlighted. The first of which is known as the jinsurai. These are an interesting group of people. The jinsurai were an order of Force users from their Surabi system who rose to prominence during the Clone Wars. Their name was the Sith pure-blooded word for followers of the truth. Their philosophy and methodology was a blend of the Jedi as well as Sith teachings. Their hierarchy loosely resembled that of the Jedi Order, and this was due to their creator. The founder of the jinsurai was originally a Jedi Knight named Nikos Tiras. Tiras was pursuing the archives of the Jedi Temple, boning up on his history when he found himself sneaking his way into the forbidden section of the archives. In here, he found a manuscript that was detailing the early days of the Jedi Order, specifically the event known as the Second Great Schism and the rise of the Sith. The manuscripts discussed one of the first ever Dark Jedi, Ajunta Pal, as well as his followers. Most of the information contained within was factually correct, save for one crucial detail. The manuscript claimed a shocking revelation that the Jedi stole everything they knew from the Sith before ultimately exiling them. The truth of the manuscript's contents was naturally questionable and biased. However, Tiras unquestionably accepted the lies of the manuscript and turned his back on the Jedi Order completely. He would then go on to create the jinsurai, who looked upon the dark side and light side Force users alike to be one and the same by blending passion and anger with compassion and peace. Unfortunately, Tiras did not notice how the manuscript was corrupting him, and he was walking the path to ultimately the dark side. Tiras trained the Knights and Padawans of the Order in what he believed to be the secret teachings of the true Jedi, when in fact he was really imparting Sith secrets and unknowingly converting his apprentices to the dark side. Eventually, Tiras would be killed by the Jedi, and the jinsurai as a whole would oppose the Jedi Order all until making peace with them thanks to Luke Skywalker and his newly established Jedi Academy. Moving on to our next organization, we have the Killian Rangers. Another especially interesting case, the Killian Rangers were an organization based in the unknown regions. These pilgrims were human colonists sent from the core to do some exploration and hopefully colonize the unknown regions. The group ultimately settled on Killia 5 sometime around 1000 BBY, and at some point they lost all contact with the outside galaxy. Interestingly enough, their history happened very closely akin to that of the Jedi Orders. They valued chivalry, justice, and the rule of the law. When they became aware of Force-sensitive children among their ranks, they would apprentice them as squires around the age that they hit puberty. Squires served as Killian Rangers and apprentices and servants. The most powerful Killian Rangers, equivalent to Jedi Masters, were called Killian Lords. At any one time, there were no more than 5 members, usually 1 Killian Lord, 2 Rangers, and 2 Squires. Just like the Jedi, however, they would experience their own schism, and a dark side sect of them would be born and dubbed the Renegades. They didn't use lightsabers, but rather used an ancient technology to create lances and small personal energy shields worn on their offhand. Not much is known about the Killian Rangers, such as the powers of the Force they might have possessed, but it's likely to equate them as the budding form of the Jedi that we know, minus all of the lore. A more primitive and earlier version of the Jedi. Now, with those two orders out of the way, let's get into the fully dark side affiliated orders that rivaled that of the Sith. Let us begin with an order that many Star Wars fans are very familiar with, the Nightsisters of Dathomir. As you know, the Nightsisters don't claim to adhere the light nor the dark side of the Force, as they claim these to be cold and ignorant terms for living force and what they called the unifying force. The Nightsisters worship spirits and twin deities that they believed governed the Force, as well as drawing upon the powers of nature and some sort of magical ichor that flowed within Dathomir for them to use their magic. Despite them not claiming to be affiliated with the light or the dark side, their powers were most certainly rooted within the dark side of the Force. However, they did not sell themselves to the power-hungry ambitions of the Sith, and preferred to only do what was necessary for the safety and preservation of their tribe. According to a commonly told story, the first Nightsisters were trained in the ways of the Force by Aliyah, a female Jedi whom the Jedi Council had sent into exile on the mysterious planet of Dathomir, with the Nightsisters believing that this Aliyah was their founding member. Interestingly enough, however, the Jedi Council have no records of an exile ever named Aliyah, and the Nightsisters themselves had other contradicting tales about their origins. Even if she was not the founder of the Nightsisters, Aliyah also wrote a book of law that taught the sisters to dislike the Jedi. At some point around the High Republic era, the sisters would adopt light whips and learn how to make light bows from technology scavenged from the invaders that landed on Dathomir. Another one that many know of, but may not know much about, is the Knights of Rhand. While we were denied any substantial screen time with the Knights of Rhand on the big screen, luckily for us, there is quite a bit of information about them residing in the comics. The Knights of Rhand were an enclave of mass Force-sensitive warriors that adhered to the ways of the Rhand. The Rhand was a religious philosophy epitomized by the lightsaber. The Rhand, which was an actual lightsaber possessed by a man also known as Rhand, epitomized the Knights of Rhand belief system. The nature of the Rhand, the lightsaber, according to the Rhand, the man, was that it just existed. It had no conscience, neither acknowledging or expressing concepts such as mortality, regret, or concern for what it might destroy. Rhand believed that in this principle there was a deep and personal level to one and the Rhand, to the point where he did not consider himself the Knights of Rhand leader. All the knights, including Rhand himself, followed the lightsaber and what it represented in their view. They did not adhere to a specific code, but were a band of marauders from the unknown regions. The knights roamed the galaxy, causing destruction. Imbued with the power of the Force, they were devotees to the dark side, which they referred to as the Shadow. In addition to their inherent abilities, the knights were armed with ranged and close-quarter combat weaponry, making them fearsome opponents in battle. If you would like a full video detailing the history and philosophy of the Knights of Rhand, please drop a comment down below. Anyway, on to the next dark side based order. The Acolytes of the Beyond are much more like a dark and twisted version of the Church of the Force. They were almost exclusively made up of non-Force sensitive people who saw themselves and everyone as slaves to the Force. They saw the Force, the dark side, as an unstoppable river, a river of events that could only ever be changed by the Sith. They worshipped the Sith Lords, and many claim to have received dreams from the fallen Sith of old. They formed after the Battle of Endor and the fall of the Empire. A few Acolytes in particular worshipped Darth Vader, and each claimed to possess his lightsaber, which they ultimately planned to destroy that it could be with their master in death. For all intents and purposes, they regarded the Sith as demigods that could command the dark side to make the galaxy a better place. Moving on, we have the Sorcerers of Tund and the Yakaombe. Not much is known about these two groups other than what is mentioned by Sifo Dyas in the novel Dooku Jedi Lost, when he and Dooku were sneaking around in the archive vault and looking at all the relics. The Sorcerers of Tund themselves were a group based on the planet of Tund that used magic much like the Nightsisters did. The Jedi had attempted to convert the sorcerers to the light side, but were largely unsuccessful in their endeavor. They instead did what they could to ensure that they at least wouldn't fall to the dark side. Ultimately though, this too would fail. Coming up next is a topic we have covered before in our Unknown Regions video, but we will summarize it once more due to the relevance to today's topic. This of course would be the Sorcerers of Rhand. The Sorcerers of Rhand, also known as Rhandites, were a religious sect of beings which inhabited a place called the Nile Retreat. The Rhandites did not believe in the Force, light or dark, but actually subscribed to a power they believed to be higher than the Force itself, a power which they simply referred to as the Dark. This was their creed. Only power is real, and the only real power is the power to destroy. Existence is fleeting. Destruction is eternal. For them, destruction was the will of the universe. They called this the Way of the Dark. The Way of the Dark was the cornerstone of the Rhandite religion. They saw destruction as a permanent change in the structure of the universe. through this destruction, a void was created, an absence of life. The void, as they believed, was the foundation of their truth. They reveled in the pit of cosmic chaos, and they were able to access a wide variety of mysterious power, again, much like the Nightsisters of Dathomir. However, it seemed that the sorcerers might have been far more powerful than that of the Nightsister magic. As stated by Mother Talzin, she said that she had heard that they could use their power to utterly eradicate anything in their path using psychic energies. The Rhand's psionic powers go beyond this as well, with them being able to use a power which they called the Dark Sight, which was the ability to create the future by looking at all the possible outcomes and choosing the one that suited the user best, though the outcome was not always guaranteed. Following this group, we have the Prophets of the Dark Side. The history of the Prophets is a bit more extensive, so we will give a brief summary here. In the Banite era, Zana's apprentice, Darth Cognis, was a devout believer in the rule of two, zealously agreeing with the Sith's new philosophy created by Bane. Darth Cognis's apprentice, however, named Darth Millennial, did not agree with the rule of two. He and Darth Cognis butted heads against a great many things, but particularly in the ideology of the rule of two. Darth Millennial believed in the strength in numbers, not understanding the wisdom behind the rule of two and why it was created. After a fierce battle, he finally escaped his master's wrath and fled to the Droman Khas, where he established the Prophets of the Dark Side. The Prophets didn't exactly accomplish what Darth Millennial had intended them to, as their teachings were incomplete due to his abandonment of the Sith, which was to eventually replace the Sith. The Prophets, however, successfully lived throughout history until Palpatine found them and deceived them into joining the ranks of the Empire. During the rise of the Empire, Palpatine wasn't just interested in wiping out the Jedi, but also focusing on burning down all dark side competition as well. Dark cults had been around for thousands of years, ultimately came to an end at Palpatine's hand when the Emperor rose to power. The Prophets were no different, and he sacrificed them all in the Battle of Endor. Somehow, a very small few of them managed to survive and founded the Church of the Dark Side. Next up, we have a rivaling magic group to the Nightsisters. These would be the Shapers of Krovar. The Shapers of Krovar were a religious sect of Force sensitives on the planet Krovar. The Shapers occupied the roles known as battle shamans for their clans. They were considered superstitious as well as brash and bold when demonstrating their powers to others. The group carried with them a heavy distrust of technology and also force power that was unseen, such as telepathy. Individuals demonstrating aptitude for such talents on the Krovar were persecuted as witches and warlocks. They remained largely superstitious of outsiders, again particularly force wielders that had powers that they had never seen before. Though over their history, these attitudes did slowly change. They also were not prone to diplomacy and in general preferred direct confrontation. The Shapers of Krovar wielded the dark side of the Force, but in a way much more akin to sorcery. Mother Talzin regarded them as being deeply connected to the elements of earth, air, and water, as well as the way of fire. Their abilities included buckling stone, creating walls of wind, and generating spouts of flame. They could ignite their targets using fire, or make their motion more fluid in battle. They exclusively resided their abilities in manipulating the elements of the seen world, as again, they heavily distrusted unseen force powers. This group would ultimately be regarded as extremely powerful, but primitive. Our final stop in today's video is known as the Blackguard. The Blackguard of Mustafar was started by the apprentice of Lord Khan himself, the original Sith Lord that started the Brotherhood of Darkness. After the Sith's destruction on Ruusan, this apprentice, Volta Danat, hadn't been there, but instead went to Mustafar, where he managed to corrupt a Jedi enclave to the dark side. What would eventually result in the Blackguard believed that there was no light or dark, and that only the light and the dark is what dwelled within the user. They sought to bring balance to the light and dark sides within themselves, similar to the ancient Jedi Order. They spread themselves out over the galaxy rather than just focusing on Mustafar. Their ranking system was much like that of the Jedi. There were 5 ranks: Minion, Elite Minion, Wielder, Elite Wielder, and the Kursk, all of which equated to the Jedi's younglings, Padawan, Jedi Knight, Master, and Grandmaster respectively. So friends, that brings an end to our list. But what did you think of these dark side force-based organizations? Organizations that rivaled the Sith. Do you believe that any of these groups could have been a significant imminent threat to the Jedi or the galaxy at large? And would you be a part of any of these organizations? And which of the organizations do you find to be the most intriguing? Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments, as well as leave what you would like to see explored in future videos. As always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and I hope that you have a great day.